Hello and welcome, Sandy D here, bringing you the Bushflower Essences. And today we have the mint bush. So the mint bush is a beautiful flower, and it almost looks human-like with its little bonnet and its um, little face in there, and its neck and its arms. It's very sweet, but it works very powerfully for things that may not be so sweet, such as spiritual initiation. So let's dive in and see first what Ian has to say about the mint bush. Ian is the founder of the Australian Bushflower Essences, and I'll be reading from his book, Bushflower Healing, first, and then I'll give you my overview. So with all the remedies, all the essences, Ian gives a verse from various sources. So this one is a Chinese proverb, and it says, "A gem cannot be polished without friction." So a gem cannot be polished without friction, and that relates to the spiritual initiation that we go through when old beliefs, patterns, habits fall away and we are reinvigorated or introduced to the new, a spiritual awakening that occurs from that. So we shall read pieces here as far as and he tells a beautiful story about how he comes by this beautiful essence and how there was a few things that stood in the way, but what stood in the way ended up eventuating in more profound outcomes. So seeming setbacks ended up being giant leaps forward, if you like, and the leading to 12 new remedies that he wasn't expecting or hadn't been guided to for some years. And then through the mint bush opened him up to 12 new remedies. So thank you, mint bush and Ian. So negative condition is perturbation, confusion, spiritual emergence, initial turmoil and void of spiritual initiation. And the positive outcome is smooth spiritual initiation, clarity, calmness, and the ability to cope. So it's very much about, so let's use an example of when, and Ian uses this example in the book, in a relationship, say for instance, and where there's a point where perhaps we feel like we've outgrown the relationship, and however we're heavily involved at the same time. There's financial ties, there's perhaps children involved. However, we feel like our soul is calling from deep within. There's a yearning for us to grow, to step outside of whatever we're contained in and find a new path. And that calling can be very strong, often very strong, but it begins by a niggle and a bit of restlessness that builds and builds and builds. And during that time, we can get very confused and unsure and what's going on. And when we're in, say, a relationship, using that as an example, it can be very difficult to understand what's happening and how to approach and what's the best way to deal with it. And then, of course, there's the ramifications of whatever happens and how to cope with that in the turmoil that comes from that, because it becomes, when we're going through a spiritual initiation, impossible to stay where we are. The force will get stronger and stronger and stronger and push us into that restlessness that just becomes impossible to ignore. And so we have to act. And that is this, what Mint Bush helps us to cope through those transitions, through this spiritual initiation that comes. And then from that, we receive clarity and we're into a new spiritual light, if you like. But it's the process in the middle that we can become it can become convoluted and difficult. And then we've perhaps in the example of the relationship, we've got other people to consider and everything that goes with that. And the emotional turmoil can be huge. And so with all that, but also knowing that you need to make the change, you need to move on, you need to make, that there's a calling, and not everyone feels like that. And so we outgrow people in the energy of a person. And so that becomes impossible to continue living in that atmosphere, because whatever's being demonstrated, the energy, and we're wanting to move and shift and evolve and grow, that becomes almost irritating. It's abrasive. And that can be a slow, progressive thing that happens, or it can just be bang. And it's the same with if that occurs for us and there is a sudden, abrupt stop to a relationship and left us confused and wondering why and what's happened, and that state of what am I going to do? I'm going to crack up here. And Mint Bush comes in and helps to resolve those emotions, to diffuse them so that we can actually cope and find clarity and move forward. Because in those moments, that is when we have the awakening, or after the initial confusion and all that goes with that. That's when we have the awakening and we reflect back and we see, I see what's happened there. And we start moving in to our soul's purpose, our soul's next level of our soul's evolution. And so that is the beautiful Mint Bush. It helps calm in those times of turmoil. And what else do we have to say? Yes, and the thing to know about those transitions is that it's temporary. It won't last forever. This too shall pass. That's not reducing or minimalizing what we go through, the upheaval at all, but it does help to tuck that into the back of our mind to guide us through. But this too shall pass, and on the other side, we'll be greeted with something much better for ourselves. So, on that note, thank you so much for sharing this moment with me. May you walk in grace and ease. Much love. Thank you.